As we continue our conversation, we're going to have a special reading from Laura Grace Dykes from her book, Confessions of a Chronic Depressive. Once she completes her reading, then I'll come back and we'll talk about the guidelines for lunch, what's going to happen after lunch. In the meantime, write your cards, bring them up here when we go to lunch, and we'll talk in a few minutes. But at this point in time, please welcome Laura Grace Dykes, and let's hear her story.
Thank you for having me today. The chapter I've chosen to share today is from my book, Confessions of a Chronic Depressive, and it's titled On Suicidal Ideation. I was diagnosed with major depression in 2001 at the age of 19 after a suicide attempt. My guess is that I was depressed for more than a year before my diagnosis. Since then, I've had 4 more distinct depressive episodes. Medical research finds that the more episodes you have, the more likely you are to keep getting depressed. With 5 episodes under my belt in only 15 years, full recovery seems unlikely. And my big fear is that depression will lead me back to suicide again. There it is, the thing I feel so afraid to even say. I am terribly afraid of killing myself because the disease I have makes me think it's the right answer. By February 2001, I had spent more than a year toying with the meaninglessness of my existence and a desire for the end to the pain I felt. I didn't plan how to kill myself, though. I didn't let the thoughts become more than vague desires. But when I mentally broke down, suicide came to me as an epiphany would. The moment is still so scarily clear in my memory. I sat in a girlfriend's dorm room crying and distraught when the thought came to me like light in the darkness. It's time to kill yourself. I took that thought as truth, and I abruptly left my girlfriend's dorm room and went to the bathroom. I stood looking in the mirror, extremely afraid. Part of me didn't want to do it, but I felt I had to. It seemed the best, if not only, solution to my pain. So I returned to my dorm room and began taking all of the over-the-counter medication I had. Half a bottle of NyQuil and more than 70 extra-strength Tylenol. And after talking to both my mother and my boyfriend on the phone, telling neither anything about what I was doing, but unable to hide my distress, I fell asleep. On my blog, also titled Confessions of a Chronic Depressive, I talk pretty openly about the fact that I still have suicidal thoughts when I'm at the mercy of my depression. It's called suicidal ideation. And while my suicidal thoughts often begin as fleeting, if I allow myself to ruminate on them, they will undoubtedly develop. Throughout my book, I talk about these grooved neural pathways in my brain. The more I think certain thoughts, the easier it is to think those thoughts later. Every time I walk down a path, I make it more walkable for myself in the future. In 15 years, I've done a lot of suicidal ideation. Often it's as simple as, I wish I could just sleep away the rest of my life. But it can develop into practicing parts of a plan or actually giving in. For me, suicidal ideation came and went with my subsequent depressive episodes, but it mostly remained fleeting thoughts until my 5th episode in 2012. At that time, my suicidal thoughts grew in my isolation. I felt increasingly worthless and burdensome. Again, suicide seemed the best choice to free myself and my loved ones from my pain. I had a location and method planned. I was in the early stages of practicing my method when I knew I couldn't do it. But I also knew I might not be able to stop myself without help. Again, I was at the mercy of suicidal thoughts. I finally called my sister in tears and asked for help. I used all of the little self-control I had left and called her. And that call saved my life. It was the turning point where I let go of that plan. I had a long struggle and recovery in front of me, but I haven't been that close to suicide since that time. If you think about suicide in any form, know that those are lies of an ill brain. In most cases, healthy brains want to survive. Even if you don't want to die, but you wish you weren't alive, You're playing a risky game. If you feed suicidal ideation, it will grow. It grew in me to near fatal proportions. Do not welcome those thoughts into your mind. In my case, they bang on the door, yelling and screaming sometimes, but I fight hard to ignore them. I know that once I start, those thoughts may take control and make me make tragic decisions. Any moment that you can find the strength to tell someone how deeply you're in the pit, do it. Most people will immediately drop everything and help save your life. If you encounter someone who won't help you, tell someone else. Don't stop asking for help if you need it. Call the suicide prevention hotline or your physician. Don't believe the lies your brain is telling you, because they are just that, lies. Miraculously, in 2001, after I drank all my NyQuil and took all my Tylenol, I woke up to the sound of my phone ringing. 2 hours after I fell asleep, my parents had arrived at my dorm based on my distraught phone call. I drunkenly made my way to the front of my dorm and broke down when I saw my parents. Still, I did not tell them what I had done. I felt safer with them there, and I just wanted to forget it. I no longer wanted to die. But within 15 minutes, I began vomiting, and at their pleas, I told my parents what I had done. My mother had made our family physician's office number easily accessible just in case she needed it for me, and they called at this point. My physician miraculously personally answered the office phone and told my parents to immediately take me to the emergency room. Over the next 48 hours, I had multiple doctors tell me that I had certainly done a thorough job, and that if I had not immediately received treatment, I would have slowly died over the next week from liver failure. My suicide attempt was not a cry for help. It was a near fatal victory for my depression. My cry for help is when I called my parents. I continued to obey the command of my depression, but something made me call them and just tell them something was wrong with me. And that call saved my life, even though I thought nothing could save me. You too can be saved. You just need to reach out to someone somewhere who can get you treatment. Make the tough call and say what you need to say. Every time I have suicidal thoughts beating down my door, I fight. And when I'm not strong enough on my own, I call someone. Sometimes I just need to hear a supportive voice. Sometimes I need to be physically rescued. Be aware of what is happening in your brain. Resist suicidal ideation at all costs, and call someone and be honest. One moment of strength, one phone call can really save you. I know, because it happened to me. I'm still here, and I will always fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Be sure to get her book. I think the power of truth impacts all of us. And if you get the call, if you're one of those names that your loved one or your friend is going to call, I think today we've been given some tools. The bookmarkers that Michelle mentioned have got wonderful information. What we have heard this morning has been phenomenal. Today, our speakers are being filmed. Within about the next 10 days, the highlights, the speakers will have their presentations taped and posted to peaceofmindtyler.com. You can go to that website, and I know we try to absorb everything we can in person, but if you were here a little late, or if you just want to listen to what one of the speakers had to say again because of the wonderful messages we're getting today, peaceofmindtyler.com.